So we're currently in one of our clients' offices in St. Paul, Minnesota. It's a really cool space that they're going to be using for an upcoming live stream that's for an economic update for their financial clients. And we're here today about 1 week out from the shoot to look for what are our camera angles going to be, what's our lighting plan, what's our sound plan, where are we going to run cables to figure out all those technical details before the event. So in the back of the room here is where we're going to have our control center. So we're going to have a folding table with our laptops for the live stream, all the technical jazz we need. But the primary ATEM, that's going to be our tight shot on the speaker, will be on the tripod here. So this is one of the shots that we were scouting, is where do we want this primary ATEM to be? And then the next thought was, we want a wider shot to show the whole room. And we had two ideas. One was to put the camera right here for a wide shot, but we thought that shot looked a little boring and flat. So instead we thought, why don't we put the other camera in the corner? So this is where our wide shot's going to be. And when you see the shot, it gives it a lot more depth. The angles and leading lines are a lot more interesting. I think it's gonna add a little bit of production value to the live stream to be able to cut to this angle. For these events in the past, we've always liked doing a crowd shot because a crowd shot allows you to show the reaction to people when they're clapping or enjoying the content. And that's where we're gonna put a camera here in the very front of the room, and we'll run cables along the walls and maybe even up high so that they're out of the way, no tripping hazards. So one of the things that we also do when we're on a scout is check the lighting situation. And we do that in a couple of ways. We have a colorimeter that can measure how warm and cool the lights are. You can also do that with your camera and just play around with your white balance point, see where you need to be on the day of. That helps us figure it out now. So on the day of, I can communicate something like, hey, set your cameras to 5600 Kelvin. We're also checking, do we have enough light? So for a live stream, we typically think it doesn't look that great if we're bouncing lights in the ceilings or setting up soft boxes. So the goal here is to figure out, do we have enough, or do we need to bump to a higher base setting in our cameras? Maybe push the gain or ISO as a trade-off to get enough exposure. For this type of project, clients aren't hiring us to make it look beautiful. They're hiring us to make it look professional, to make sure you can hear the speakers, to capture the important economic information they're sharing, and to capture the live event for people who can't attend in person to be able to enjoy the content. So one thing we're also testing in this space is how do we get the laptop signal to these TVs? And that may seem like a really easy thing, like why would you need to test that? Of course it's gonna work, but we've had enough experience now to know that sometimes these ports that you plug into have to have a very specific button sequence, or there's software running behind it that's trying to prevent us from doing what we're doing. And the reason these systems exist is they want to make it simple for the average user. But when we're coming in here as a professional team, running different types of HDMI signals, or we're splitting signals, they sometimes don't like what we're doing. The reason we're splitting it is not only is the laptop being fed to these two screens, it's also being fed to the back of the room where our control center is for the live stream. So we're going to be having each camera plugged into the live stream, but also the slides, so people that are watching remotely can see what the speakers are gesturing to and what information is on the screen. This is an HDMI splitter, so what we're using this for is to split the laptop signal into two outputs. And one of the outputs is being run to the wall here, and the other one is going into this decimator. And a decimator isn't always required, but it basically locks the signal. It helps laptops and other signals not jump different frequencies or frame rates. It kind of keeps it a steady 2398, which helps with some of our other hardware. For instance, the Ninja V doesn't like when the signal keeps changing all the time. It'll start to flicker or just cut out. One of the outputs is plugged into the Ninja V as a way to monitor and check that we're getting a signal. So it's really used on our location scout as a way to verify we're getting the right signals. But on the day of the production, this signal will be run to the back of the room into the ATEM for the live stream. So for this shoot, what we're gonna use is lav mics. So there's 3 primary speakers that are gonna be laved up. This is gonna allow them to be able to roam freely around and use their hands and not have to hold a mic. We've also found that when people hold a handheld mic, they usually hold it too low, and that causes the signal to not be strong enough. But we've also had shoots where when there's all the bodies in the room and a bunch of electronic devices, that the wireless signal can have interference from the lav mic. So our plan is also to run a handheld mic backup that will be run with a cable to the back. So we have a hardwired backup as an option if lav mics go down. That's something that when you're thinking about live streams or live productions, you always want to have what is your plan A and what's your plan B. Even for all the cameras, yes, we're running 3-4 cameras because it aesthetically looks better, but if we lose a camera, we still have other camera angles to cut to while we go troubleshoot. All right, so we're here on set now for the live stream that we're setting up for. You can see we have a lot more gear out now. We have our ATEM Pro ISO. John, who will be back in a second, is running all of our audio through a RODECaster. He's able to record ISO tracks of all the speakers and also do the mix on there. So we have the primary ATEM on the 70-200. It's gonna do our waist up style shot of the speakers that will be at the front of the room. This one's kind of giving us more of our wide angle. It's nice because it's more off angle so that we aren't shooting super flat for everything, but it does show multiple speakers at the front. So if you have 2 or 3 people up there, we can see it from this camera angle. And we did it on a C-stand so that it's not going to get in the way. You know, one of the challenges for live events is that there's a lot of people moving around. So if you have a large set of tripod legs, people have a higher tendency to trip on them. So this is a bit safer to have it on a C-stand. Even though the rig looks a little funky, it does work a little bit better for that. Our final camera is an A7S III. And the A7S III is just on a small rig tripod here. And this one's really our crowd shots when people are like clapping or looking like they're engaged. All right, so we're back here at our little control center. I got my ATEM here. There's a little Lilliput 14-inch screen where I'm seeing our whole program view so I can actually live switch while watching the stream here. And then John here is running sound for us. John, would you be able to take us through a bit of the setup we're running here today?
Yeah, so it's a multiple person presentation. We've got 3 speakers. They're all going to be on lavaliers. So we have a couple channels of our Sennheiser G4s and then Phil's Sony URX.
Yeah.
And then we have another handheld mic in there for the Q&A, and that's all hitting my RODECaster. And then I'm coming out of my RODECaster into our just live PA system, just the mono feed so people can hear in the room a little bit better. And then going out my main feed over here to Phil's ATEM, where we're doing a little bit of post-processing within the ATEM software, just a little limiting to make sure that we don't blow people's ears off. But yeah, that's our setup. It's pretty simple when it comes down to it, but there's a lot of knobs and faders that make it look a lot more confusing than it is.
Yeah, John's a pro. That's why we bring him on set for these. And we're doing a pretty small crew for this many speakers and cameras, so it's great to have a team that can wear a lot of hats and be able to run this many inputs and mix it live. So we're about 30 minutes out and we'll be kicking off the live stream here shortly, piping it into a Zoom meeting. So we're actually using Zoom's webinar feature and we're making the ATEM look like a webcam, and that's how we're piping in the audio and the video for this webinar.